Good morning and welcome to the Higher Education Leadership Foundation's virtual Inspire Fall 2020 Institute. I'm Herman Felton, president of Wiley College and a founder of the Higher Education Leadership Foundation. Here at H.E.L.F, we are deeply impassioned about HBCUs. In fact, we consider ourselves zealots for this sacred space. We also inherently believe there is a sacred obligation one takes on while occupying this space. Do no harm, operate in a continuum of excellence, serve, and leave the space better than you found it. HBCUs were born out of a necessity to educate the progeny of the enslaved. Despite the many dangers, toils, and snares, these iconic institutions have faced from many fronts, both internally and externally. We stand. We stand unapologetically with the resolve of our ancestors and with a steel spine that has withstood the test of time over the past 150 years. On behalf of the founders, Alfred Anthony Pinkard, Melva, Christy, Williams, Gregory, Dees, and myself, we want to thank each of you, over 600 of you from 58 HBCUs and 43 PWIs, governmental agencies, consultants, school districts, private and public sector employees have joined us today. And we believe that this time will be cherished, invaluable, and a wonderful opportunity. We welcome you to the Higher Education Leadership Foundation and know that while we're facing challenging times, together we are strong. Together we will withstand this test. Here at the Higher Education Leadership Foundation, our mission is simple. We desire to help train the next crop of leaders, those who are highly skilled, disciplined, and principled, to take on the leadership mantle at our HBCUs. I invite you on behalf of the founders to sit back and enjoy yourself today, whether you are here for one or all of them. I promise you, today will be enriching, enlightening, and recharging. Our very first panel of the day is entitled Searching, Sought, and Staying Put, Knowing When to Hold 'em, When to Fold 'em, and When to Walk Away. Our thought facilitator is none other than M. Christopher Brown, II, President of Kentucky State University. Please welcome him. His thought partners, Dr. Tasnian DeBroy, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Howard University and former President of Shaw University. Please welcome her.
Good morning, thank you.
And last but not least, Alfred Anthony Pinkard, President of Wilberforce University. Thank you all and have fun.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Felton, and to H.E.L.F. It's good to join you yet again. I wish that these professional development opportunities were available when I was matriculating my professional career. And certainly great salutes to Dr. Tashini DeBroy and to Dr. Anthony Pinkard from Howard University and Wilberforce. I'm excited about this conversation this morning because I think back to the first real moment when I had to engage this question of searching, sought after, and staying put. I spent my career in Research One institutions, and after a stint, Dr. Pinkard, if you recall, we were at UNCF. After working at the United Negro College Fund at Frederick Patterson Research Institute, I ultimately ended up as dean at UNLV in Las Vegas. And I got a call from Fisk University about their SAC CLC and a vacant provost position which I had never even considered, and ultimately made the decision to join the HBCU community full-time at FEST. And the email that I sent to the faculty at UNLV in May of 2009, when I got ready to leave, was included a quote from Kenny Rogers that said, "You have to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away." I didn't think about the run part, but certainly there are times all of us can attest that we want to run. So I want to begin by inviting you, and if you don't mind, if I call you Tashni and
Sure.
Tony Griffin, to begin by talking about your academic background and the road to the presidency, and how you got to this moment.
Who would you like to start?
I want you to start, ladies first.
All right, no problem. So good morning, everybody. I'm really happy to be with the H.E.L.F family once more, albeit virtually. But I think we can still build a community online. So I look forward to seeing the questions that you have in the chat, and we'll be able to answer accordingly. So I am a PhD chemist as far as my terminal degree is concerned. And I've always known that I wanted to be a chemist. I think I knew that in the 9th grade. And so I committed to it and took it all the way through. But I had alternate interests as well, the most prominent being in the business field. And so I went on to pursue an MBA at Rutgers University during my tenure in corporate America. So I started my career at a chemical company called BASF. And I was a bench chemist at that time, going to work in coveralls, looking like a mechanic. And it wasn't until a VP from the business side of the company came down to the unit, and he was very interested in finding out what my current projects were, and also what I was interested in doing within the next 5 years at BASF. And I was ready for that answer. But in that answer, I gave him quite a bit of information about entrepreneurship within BASF. I guess you'd call it entrepreneurship. And I also gave him more information, and very detailed information on the market share that BASF could attain in the industry if we changed a few of our marketing concepts. He was intrigued. And he really accelerated my career, moving me from the technical side of the company to the business side, where I got the opportunity to mix my technical background with my entrepreneurial interests. From BASF, I started a hair care company. And I won't be a spoiler, but that's one of the moments where I had to make a decision on whether or not to leave corporate America and take a risk and start my own business, which I did along with a partner from Hampton University. She also obtained her PhD from NC State University. Moving on from entrepreneurship, I co-owned a hair salon and started at Shaw University as a professor. Took a pay cut from corporate America to take a risk, and went through professorship to department chair, to special assistant to the president of the university. And I'd say that another pivotal moment in my career was moving from Shaw University as its president to being COO at Howard University today. And none of those moves are moves that I regret. I think I've really had an opportunity to learn, to grow, to make an impact every step of my career, and even with the moves that have been the riskiest.
Yes. Dr. Pinkart, Tony.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, Dr. DuBrois, and good morning, everyone. It's good to be with you all this morning. My route to the presidency is a little unorthodox, and embedded in this story is the notion of really being open to what God may have for you in your life. And I say that without any hyperbole. I started, as most, I got an early 2 degrees at HBCUs, Morehouse and Howard, actually. After I got my master's, I returned to my hometown, which is Miami, Florida, and taught there at Miami-Dade, which was at that time Miami-Dade Community College, which is now Miami-Dade College, the largest actually community college in the nation. And 2 years into my teaching, I realized that I wanted a terminal degree. And so I returned to graduate school, completed the degree. And my first job was actually at a PWI. I was at PWI in Ohio, and doing that work, and moved from there to another PWI and then another PWI. But the graduate school that I attended, there was a program, it's no longer in existence, but it was a program that was run and founded by the Woodrow Wilson Foundation. It was the Woodrow Wilson National Fellowship Program, and it was a program that was designed to identify individuals who had an interest in working in administrative positions at HBCUs. It's a very competitive program. I applied for the program. I was accepted into the program. That gave me an opportunity to do two things, to return to an HBCU working, and also to return to Miami, which is my hometown. And so my placement was at Florida Memorial College at the time, now university, where I was the chairperson for the Division of Social Sciences. Did that work for a number of years, and then left higher education for a brief stint and worked at a community health center, returned to higher ed, worked at Miami-Dade again, and then really wanted to get into the HBCU space. And so contacted a colleague of mine who was at that time the president of Tougaloo College in Tougaloo, Mississippi. And at the time, he happened to be looking for an executive vice president. And the timing was just perfect. And so I left Miami-Dade and took that position. And that really was the turning point for me in terms of leaving PWI, that community, and working at HBCUs. And I just simply moved up all of the academic, moved up the academic rung, and then moved into administration and worked at several HBCUs until I found myself doing the work for H.E.L.F. Worked with Dr. Felton, Dr. Williams, and began this work, got very excited about this work. Never imagined myself as a college president. I was always interested in studying HBCU leadership. So I kind of imagined myself as an HBCU presidential scholar. That is someone who was doing a lot of the writing and who would develop a very, very rich research background in studying the presidency at HBCUs. And so that was my interest, and never imagined myself in the role as a president. Along the way, as a young professional, people would say to me, you know, you could be a president, you should be a president, I'd work for you if you were president. And all that is very flattering when you hear that, particularly as a young professional. You think, you know, what do people see in me? But I never had that aspiration, and I say that in all honesty. And then people would say to me, but you should never close off what God may have for you. And so I would oftentimes say, well, the only way that I would become a Black college president if a board chair would call me up and ask me to take the job. And I knew that in the sequencing of things, that very rarely happened. So I thought that I was protecting myself against something that I just had no imagination in my own personal life for. Well, as things would have it, I came to Wilberforce, under the presidency of my colleague and friend, Herman Felton. Came as his provost and vice president executive vice president and provost. And 16, 17 months into that tenure, other opportunities arose for Dr. Felton. He moved on, and the board approached me and asked me to assume the presidency at Wilberforce. And so I was appointed in December of 17, and actually took the seat in February of 18. So that is my story in terms of how I have come to be the president of this incredible institution.
Well, thank you. And you sort of segued to the question that was forming in my mind. So you already responded about the board chair's call. So let me ask Dr. Dubroy, your moves from Shaw, your move to Shaw, and then from Shaw to Howard, were those moments of your searching or your moments of being sought after? And what would you say to the higher education practitioner community about both?
Chris, now you're asking me to tell all of my business. Okay. All right. I'll give you some of my business. How about that? All right. So let's talk about the move to Shaw University. So I should have stated that Shaw University is my alma mater.
Awesome.
I started at Shaw, not even knowing what an HBCU was. As a matter of fact, I'm from Jamaica originally. And so I've been going to schools all my life where the majority of folks attending were Black. And so I had to learn about the history of HBCUs, and it's a history that I revere and respect. As a matter of fact, my sisters have both attended HBCUs. Another attended Shaw University and another attended Howard University. And so now I think as first generation Americans, we have certainly planted a seed in my family that we intend to continue. Moving from BASF to being an entrepreneur, my entrepreneurship overlapped with my tenure as a professor at Shaw University. I went there while owning a hair care company, Tea and Honey Blends. And while I was a professor, I also opened a hair salon that served as a major distribution center for the products there. Now, it wasn't a conflict of interest for me to continue to pursue my personal dreams and be a professor. As a matter of fact, the two commuted so well because I was able to teach from the perspective of letting my students know that they could have dreams that were multifaceted, that they could, pursue a technical path, but also combine that with business interests, artistic interests, etc. So it really was a kind of mechanism and method that I used in the classroom that was pretty successful. But it wasn't without its challenges. Being an entrepreneur isn't easy. There's a level of accountability that is very unique, especially when you're responsible for paying for someone else's salary. And there were times when, I had to go down to the Bronner Brothers show to display my wares, or I'm in a business meeting with distributors trying to gain distribution for the brand. And at the same time, I'm having to grade papers at night and care for a toddler. But, you recognize that you take those risks while you're young, and nothing wrong with doing it while you're old either. But the key is the energy level that you have. And it also resulted in a sacrificial pay cut. For example, in corporate America, I was making low six figures by the time I exited. And yes, I went into entrepreneurship, but it's a business investment. So you don't automatically make money as soon as you develop a brand or as soon as you start selling products. So while I was having a profitable company, and yes, investors were investing in the entity, I also experienced a pay cut going to about $45,000 as a professor, right? And so, but I looked at it more of an opportunity to give back to my alma mater. That kind of position fed my soul, and it fed my passion for education. So to me, that's what, in essence, what you call a labor of love. And then, of course, moving up the line to a department chair, you get a little bit of extra money, but it doesn't usually correlate with the level of effort that you need to put in or the level of responsibility that you're given. And then becoming special assistant to the president, got a bit more compensation there. And of course, as a college president, you get additional compensation. But all along the line, it comes with more responsibility. And so those are, parts of the promotion that can't be overlooked. And you now have a job that is well in the spotlight. You're more responsible for, the university-wide goals. And when you get things wrong or make a mistake, it's very visible. So you're taking a risk significantly with your career, with your character, and your brand, because you want to make sure that along the way you have a brand of being able to do, being able to complete, etc. And similarly, I will go into some of the reasons why I decided to go to Howard University when the opportunity was made available to me. I didn't seek the presidency at Shaw University. That wasn't even in my mind when I started there as a professor, nor did I think that a 34-year-old would ever get the job. But it became realistic to me once I became special assistant to the president. I realized that so many of the attributes that Shaw University was looking for, and so many of the goals that they had, the aspirations, so many of the challenges that needed to be addressed, I thought that I had the skill set in order to be able to overcome. And so that's why I applied for the job. And it was a competitive process and I nailed it. Moving to Howard University was a little bit different. I didn't seek employment at Howard University. As a matter of fact, when I was offered the opportunity at Howard, I said, I think I haven't been at Shaw for long enough. I want to accomplish more. I've got this to do, that to do, and I would name everything else. But Dr. Frederick is exceptional. He, I'd say one other boss that I've had, displays attributes that I admire, and I like his vision. And I knew that I could only leave the position where I was the CEO to work for somebody else if that person was smart, had high moral values, had a bold vision, and would appreciate the effort that I would put in order to be able to help him or her to accomplish that vision. And that's what Dr. Frederick represented, and he continues to do that today.
I want to go back to Shaw for just a moment, because sure. There was a piece of the story that you shared. There's a book that I recommend all the time to people by Crouch, who used to own TBN, called I Had No Father But God, where he says that one of the great tragedies of the narrative of the crucifixion is that we focus so much on the resurrection that we forget the scars that Christ had, the wounds in his hand. And as we go throughout our careers, people often note the appointment or the presidential position, but they fail to note the wounds that are part of that process. You talked about being a professor, you talked about the struggles of being an entrepreneur and trying to make payroll. There is an anxiousness, if you would, among the current cadre of higher education practitioners to jump at the first opportunity for advancement. So they want to skip steps, if you would, to get to the top as quickly as possible. What are the key signs in an institution that alert you that you should stay and wait for promotion? Because the Tashney and Du Bois story is she was a chemist, she had a hair care line, and she became president of Shaw, right? But in between, there were probably days she was like, oh, this faculty, I don't feel like grading these papers. I'm tired. As special assistant, if I write one more letter for the president, I'm gonna go crazy. But you waited it out. Not that you were waiting for promotion, but you saw some benefit in the tasks and the task assignment. What are signs that we can give to higher ed practitioners that they should stay the course in a position, even if it's painful? I want to hear from you, Dr. Du Bois, and then Dr. Pinker.
I think there's something intrinsic that one has to use as a compass. and leaders learn it over time. And you have to do a lot of introspection and be real with yourself about your skill set. And have a track record for being able to accomplish something. It's always beneficial when someone else has recognized your work and your output as being stellar or as being of significant consequence to the university's ability to achieve its goals. Now, I think one of the reasons why our current community of leaders who want to advance to the presidency often want to skip steps or think they can skip steps or not have a long residence time in certain positions is because there are some presidents who, when they look at whether they can measure up to that president, they're saying, man, I can do a better job than he or she can. So I don't blame them for having the ambition. I think ambition is healthy, but reckless and uninformed ambition is usually problematic. So I understand where it comes from. Intrinsically though, one has to be able to say, have I learned enough? Have I mastered the skill sets that I need in my current position? And have I garnered a few to make me successful in my next step? And that has to come from some introspection. And if you don't have that type of compass within, you're gonna get in trouble as you reach higher and try to vie for positions that have a larger breadth of responsibility. It usually becomes very quickly overwhelming for people who are underprepared, overconfident, and don't have the support of their bosses in order to be able to help them with that exponential growth that is often needed, or accelerated growth. So, that's what I would say in terms of ensuring that whatever it is that you're currently doing, if you are a financial aid director, be the best financial aid director you can be. You can't say you're a great financial aid director and then the audit shows that you've got 5-6 findings that are repeat year over year. You've got to ensure that you're getting better at controlling that year over year. And it's the same thing for any managerial responsibility that you're charged with. If people consistently say that you're a poor manager and you're not improving on that managerial skill set, then the answer is not to take on an additional management responsibility. When you are responsible or you manage 2 people, you've got to learn how to be empathetic and how to motivate those 2 people in the best way possible. And then 2 becomes 5, 5 becomes 15, 15 becomes 1,000. But at the end of the day, you have to be learning in that multi-step progression towards whatever end goal you have.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we have to understand and that is that there is a particular, what we're talking about is really very much particular to the millennial generation. I don't think that it's unique to them. I think that there is an arrogance, and I don't say this disparagingly. So most of our audience today are millennials and are young people. And so please, I don't say this disparagingly. There is a sort of arrogance that comes with being young and being youthful. And I think that if you've had the opportunity to earn degrees, if you've had the opportunity to gather very solid credentials, and you find yourself in a place and a university where you have some responsibility. And as Tashni has said, you look at the president and you may think that this is a job that you can do. You may have little regard for the president. That certainly happens often. And so you think that this is a job that you, in fact, can do. And part of that has to do with the fact that this particular generation moves from job to job. This is something that is just peculiar to millennials. If you look at their track record in all disciplines, they move from job to job. I would just underscore what Dr. DeBroy has said in terms of being good and being solid where you are, developing a fund of goodwill with the people with whom you work, developing a very strong experiential background, knowledge base, and skill set. Begin to develop a network of individuals that can assist you and can speak honestly and forthright to you when you are facing some decisions around whether you should move from one place to the other. I just think that, and you'll have to really, I really like this notion of introspection. And really doing very serious navel gazing. This is, and that can be uncomfortable at times, and really recognizing if there is a fit at the institution that you currently serve between your individual vocation and the institution's mission. If there is alignment, then perhaps you should stay a little longer and really gain the kind of background and heft that's going to make you marketable as you seek your next opportunity. It's a very personal experience. It's a very personal journey in terms of when it is your time to leave and whether you should stay. I also think that you should really develop a keen sense of discernment. Are there individuals in the institution where you're serving that clearly have your professional interest at heart? Is the president, or do you have colleagues who are invested in your professional development that you might not be able to get that elsewhere? Those are all important parts of gaining the kind of skill set, experiential background, really sort of individual and professional strength that puts you in a much better position when you should decide to seek your next opportunity.
You both dealt with this language of introspection. I wanted to, but you also talked about supervision. So I want to ask a two-part question that does not connect in any way. But the first part is, you talked about introspection, discernment, navel gazing. How do you differentiate a fire in the belly for the work that needs to be done versus status seeking? And the two are not the same. And what is the role of your boss or your supervisor in helping you navigate your career aspirations?
I think that one of the things that we have to note is that the mentor-mentee relationship, and the boss relationship with the person to whom with the person that the person supervises, that can be a very important relationship if it is approached correctly. But it can also be a very explosive and a toxic relationship as well, because there are a number of things that are going on in that relationship. I'd like to speak to this notion of fire in the belly versus moving around just for status seeking. You know, when you encounter a young professional who has that fire in the belly, you know this because you see that this person is available and willing to do the work. Oftentimes the conversation, most often than not, the conversation with them will involve, what do I need to do to get the work done? How can I better myself so that I can be effective in getting the work done? Central to most conversations and to their talking about their next opportunity always centers around the sanctity and the importance of the work. And you see that often, and you see that very clearly in individuals with whom you work, versus those individuals that are clearly seeking either money, which is, and there's nothing clearly wrong with that. We need to be compensated for our talents, and or the status. It's very easily determined. And those individuals that are seeking the status, they are oftentimes ineffective in their work. They may be especially credentialed. They may have an impressive background, but when they are coming to when it meets that intersection of what needs to happen and moving forward, with the work, you will oftentimes see a kind of weakness, if you will, or lack of commitment that makes getting the work accomplished impossible with this particular person. So I like this notion of distinguishing between fire in the belly and seeking status. And I think that it's very easily discerned. And when you as a supervisor, when you see individuals like that who are reporting to you, you have two choices. You can bring that to their attention and really deconstruct what's really going on. And that can be a very difficult conversation to have. Or you can decide that this is a person that's their presence on my team is not going to get the team or the institution where it needs to be. And then you have another difficult conversation, and that conversation may be about separation from the team or from the institution. And again, those conversations are important, but they're difficult to have.
Awesome. Tashni.
You know, one of the things that I value as a leader and as someone who has managed in various settings is I have learned over time that it is so important for me to motivate my direct reports so that they can be successful. And as my career has progressed, it has become even more important for me to remove bureaucratic barriers that hindered their success. And there are times as well when I recognize that the growth that the person has exhibited transcends the promotion that we are able to provide in their current setting, unless I'm about to give up my job. And so I recognize that, you know, they're at one point in time, they're going to have to fly. And so I think managers have to play a role of coaching, guiding, promoting, recognizing, and paying people what they're worth. And the savvy managers will be able to do that before an employee even asks for a promotion or asks for additional compensation. On the other hand, if you have a manager who has all good intentions, but just, you know, hasn't opened a conversation of that kind with you, there is nothing wrong with speaking to a manager about your ambitions during a performance review. But there are parts of that conversation that I would caution an employee about. I've sat in conversations where someone has, you know, told me that they deserve to be on the president's cabinet, for example. And those are conversations that I would say are inappropriate. And usually it still surprises me that even the most well-intentioned of employees don't realize that you should not be dictating to the president, you know, whether or not your role or your performance now opens up an opportunity for you to serve in that capacity. So those are just conversations that I would stay away from, the I deserve conversations. But it can be stated in such a different way. by asking about opportunities that are available for promotion, or asking for advice on what's next, or what do you need to develop, gain additional skills in order to vie for a position that has higher authority, or what challenge can they give you so that you can demonstrate your ability in a manner that you're not able to demonstrate now, right? Those are the things that I would say are productive conversations that one should have. But the managers certainly have a responsibility to be thinking about succession planning, to be thinking about, skill sets that cross over with each other, and ensuring that people aren't siloed in terms of either their skills or what it is that they're charged with doing. That's just the future of the workplace. And we shouldn't be so comfortable knowing one thing. After a while, it gets boring, you get jaded. That's when that sedentary professionalism starts to set in, and you don't want to get to that phase. Always work on being innovative, on thinking, how can I grow? How can I add more? Because it'll just be valuable for you, your brain, the organization, and everybody else. And then in terms of passion versus status seeking, I don't think there's any industry where status seeking is ever a good thing. That's probably some type of psychological deficit that one is trying to fill. But what I do encourage is it's okay to want more. It's okay to yearn for the next position and to plan your career. I don't see anything wrong with that. But as I always say, you can't have ambition without having a track record of accomplishments. And more likely than not, when you're a doer and when that is what your track record is, you won't even have to vie to seek out what your next position should be, because others will be looking for you. The academic world is so small, and we're always looking for talent. We do it via search firms. We go to conferences and listen out for who is presenting. You often hear, a college president, sometimes they'll say, man, I got a bad, person in, and when I say bad, I mean good. Forgive me, this is not a Jamaican side of me. So, I have a really good person in enrollment management, and that person is well sought after, because those types of roles within the organization are keys to the organization's success. So that's what I would say that one should aim for. Aim to be so valuable to an entity that they have absolutely no choice but to recognize you for your effort.
So let me flip
may I make one before I just like to make underscore one point, and that is that your audience should know that managers, presidents, leaders recognize good work when they see it. This really sort of underscores what Dr. Du Bois is saying. When you do good work, it's noticed, and people are watching you. People know good work, and no one wants a talent walking out of the door. Everyone wants to keep a talent on their team at their institution. And if your manager, your president, whomever is your mentor, really has your best interest at heart, while they may not want you to walk out of the door, they want the best for you. And they will support that, cultivate that, such that you won't have to have a difficult conversation, because they'll come to you recognizing when it's time for you to move on. But do good work and know that good work is being noticed, and good people, a talent is always noticed, always sought after, and is always an attractive part of an organization.
Let me add to that. So good people are noticed by good managers, right? So because there are some haters out there, right? So I agree with Tony. I'll just add that qualifier because
absolutely,
at some point in time, as you progress in your career, you're going to be choosing your boss. So we're talking about this in terms of making yourself more attractive to, an organization. But there will come a time, and it may come very early, where you have to decide on do my values align, or pardon me, does the organization's values align with my values? Absolutely. And I think that is the moment that you have transcended what I would call the fingerprint of being a doer. Because once you are able to speak with that type of, intonations, and you're able to think from that viewpoint, I think you would have known that you've created such a great track record that at that point in time, you can now think about who it is that you're about to work for. And everybody should investigate not only who the organization's leader is, but what do his managerial representation, and what does his or her managerial representation look like, and do they carry out the same type of mores and values while on the ground? Because if it doesn't happen and you don't feel it at that level, then you're going to have a tough time in that role.
That's right.
And I appreciate that, but this is where I want to flip the script. I want to turn the table over. Anyone who's been to my health session, when I get there, I talk about my own proclivities for being messy and petty, right? I am messy and I am petty. I believe that being messy allows me to disrupt sort of the traditional silos in the academy, and my pettiness allows me to tease out details that otherwise might be missed. So I think all of what we've discussed this far has been quite clinical. It has been neat. It has been clean. I think we have laid out the searching, the sought after, the staying put, and the holding them. I think we've done that. But let's get sort of Spanish novella. Let's get messy and petty. Let's get messy and petty. Let's talk, and maybe it's not you, maybe you want to use a case study of someone else. What are situations, are signs that it is time to walk away, or to run away, to get out as fast as you can?
Yeah. May I start, Tashley? May I start with this?
Yeah.
Because
get messy and petty with me.
Well,
get messy and petty.
Well, I'm going to share an experience, an immediate experience in my career that in fact freed me up for the trajectory that has put me here at Wilberforce. And that was when I served as the executive vice president at an institution. I had been hired at that institution by the president, with whom I had a long history. In fact, we were undergraduate roommates at our undergraduates. And so this was someone that I had known for a number of years. Had recruited me to join his team as his executive vice president. And that relationship went sour dramatically in short shift. I was there about 4.5 years, and my departure was abrupt and unexpected. In fact, it was a Thursday afternoon. I went into the office to talk about something, and it went, as the young people say, it went left very, very quickly. And when I left the office having tendered my resignation, and left the institution several days later, and took me on it allowed me to be available to do the work with H.E.L.F. and just a number of things. That was a messy situation, because that encounter was that final encounter was messy. and unexpected for me. And I had not planned to depart at that time like that. But it was something that it was very clear to me that the alignment that I thought existed did not, and that this was an individual with whom I could not work 1 minute further. And so I made the decision at that time to leave, which leads me to another important point here, and that is you must always be prepared to walk away if you find yourself in a situation that is untenable. It is untenable because of for whatever reason, whether it's the messiness, whether you see something that you cannot abide any longer, whether you come to a situation with the person to whom you report that makes it impossible for you to work with them any further, whether you see something in them that you no longer respect, whatever the reason, you have to, or you might be asked to do something that is diametrically opposed to who you are as an individual. You have to be prepared to walk away. And that means that you have to be financially prepared.
Yes.
So a piece of this discussion this morning should be about how do you make sure that you have the financial resources so that you can walk away when you find yourself confronted with something that is completely unacceptable to you as a human being, and that you find yourself no longer able to maintain a relationship or be in a place because it assaults everything that you are about.
Yeah, and let me cue you, Tashi, and Pinkett, you brought back flashbacks that I had forgotten about my time in Mississippi. I can now recall the day that I went to meet with my supervisor in Jackson to discuss the issue. And it was clear to me that he did not have confidence in my answer. And it was at that moment that I said, you helped me tremendously just now. I said, this marriage is over.
Absolutely.
I knew it at that moment.
Absolutely.
I walked to the state-owned SUV and called my attorney and said, we need to end this contract because even if I stayed, there was no relationship. The relationship was done. But like you said, you have to, when you make that moral compass decision, you have to be financially secure. But there are implications, like you said, of you've made a great decision. You made a moral decision. You feel good. You feel relieved, and then you wake up the next day unemployed.
Absolutely.
Unemployed. So Tashi DeBroy, talk to us about this walking away and running away. Give us some Jamaican wisdom. That's something your grandmother said to help us contextualize this moment. And do you know of anyone, or have you ever had to make? Apparently, Tony and I, it must be an alpha thing, because one of our great former presidents says, when hell freezes over, we'll fight on ice. So we will walk away. Talk to us about that.
So listen, I'm from the land of messy and petty, okay? But I'll be honest with you. I also play from Beyonce's playbook, and always stay gracious. Best revenge is your paper. That's kind of the mantra that I've had. Because I want to, people can be, when you're a woman especially, people can exaggerate the emotions that a woman expresses in a moment of angst. You and Tony have just articulated a privilege that men often have that women don't. And we quickly gain a poor reputation if we don't exit with grace. And in some cases, we're not forgiven for it. So because I know that, even when the Jamaican side of me really wants to give it to them, I have not. And I have maintained that I will continue to respect you and keep above the fray so that it does not get out of control, because we're all human, and I just don't want a situation where I snap. And so luckily in my career, I've not had that yet. But I will say that I have been under duress to the point where I've wanted to, but I've just not. And I'll use very cautiously my presidential exit. Now, the reasons I left, as I mentioned, I think one should always examine who it is that they are working for, and if the values that the institution has align with your values. And if they don't, and you have tried everything, then it may be time to depart, no matter how soon that departure feels to the external public. But it matters about what it is that you have been able to accomplish and what type of footprint you're leaving, and if you are leaving them with good intentions. And what I mean by that is this. When I departed my alma mater, the lovely person who served with me as Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Paulette Dillard, she took the helm, and she remains at the helm today. And that speaks to the love that I have for my alma mater, despite the issues or challenges that I had with our board leadership. And it's usually not everybody on the board. You're always gonna have people with whom your thoughts, plans, goals align. But then sometimes the naysayers can be messy. And you really have to make a decision on whether or not that messiness inhibits the growth of the university and of what you're trying to accomplish for the university. I always remember, I would say, listen, don't you see what we're doing? Like, can't you see the goodness that is coming out of this? You know, come with me on this journey. And you've got to pull a few, and you have to help people to see where you're headed, because not everybody is going to be, you know, knocking the tambourines and hitting the drums during the tough challenges. There are some people who are not going to be able to manage through the mire, but they want to be able to celebrate when it's all done. And so I felt as if I was having to create so many exceptional wins in order to gain momentum and in order to gain support. And I always said, man, we would have been able to accomplish anything that we wanted to if I had the support that I needed in order to address the challenges that the university faced. I'm at a university now where I don't have to question that support. I walked into our first board meeting and it was a breath of fresh air. And to this day, I walk into those meetings with reverence because of the knowledge that's in the room, the respect that is in the room, the support that they have for the president. It is just a totally different atmosphere. And I have not changed significantly in terms of my track record of accomplishments. Sure, my breadth of responsibility has deepened. And certainly I've been exposed to so much more of the operations at a larger school, et cetera. And I've learned so much here. But at the end of the day, my values have remained the same. And I'm the same person, but the value and the appreciation that the institution feels for what it is that I'm doing makes me go further faster, and it certainly has given me wings.
Yeah, I like the point.
Go ahead.
I just want to underscore this idea of always being gracious, and thank you, Tashni, for pointing out the privilege that Chris and I experience as men in those exit situations. And let me also point out to the audience that at that moment that I decided that it was time for me to leave this particular institution, as I sat across from this president who had brought me to be a part of his team, I was a gentleman at all times. There was no shouting. There was no there was no shouting. It was it was a very gracious sort of, if this is the time for this relationship to end. And I think that it's important that you underscore that. And I think it's important for our audience to hear this. This is not the area for hysteria and for drama and dramatic exits. That does not get you anywhere, because you have to have a reputation, and you have to maintain that reputation. And as you mentioned, Tasha, you have to have a brand that you do not want to derail or to sully in the process of exiting a situation. So I think it's important for your audience to know that. And thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and you know, not just gracious, the great rap song that says, you know, that real players move in silence. And that's so right. You can call anyone from Mississippi. I left, and most of the campus didn't find out till the next semester. It was going just that quickly and quietly. But bring it to a simmer. I don't want to boil just yet, because we want to get to some audience questions. I need to check with H.E.L.F. to see when we're opening the portals for audience questions. But I want to use a teaching moment here. So if there's a young professional, mid-career professional, financially ambiguous, etc., but there is either one of two things: not an institutional or aspirational fit any longer, or a genuine ambition or fire in the belly to pursue another opportunity that may be external to the campus. You know, Lincoln freed the slaves, so everyone has a right to free mobility. So how does, what is advice for a beginning or mid-career professional, particularly one who is a good performer, rewarded by a good manager, who is viewed as an integral part of the team, who, for whatever reason, sees another opportunity? They view that holding them is not the answer. They're not running, but they see an opportunity that they genuinely believe aligns to their God-inspired path for their life. How do they navigate that with their boss or attachment? How do you navigate that with your board? What does that look like when you are walking away, a deliberate, and maybe not even walking away, but just going to look on the other side of the fence? You just want to go interview for something.
Yeah, it can be a very risky move, because at the end of the day, you're always playing into someone else's emotions, and they're human. You know, the most kind of supervisors can, you know, change like the weather when you start saying, I'm thinking of leaving. And very often, I think it's because they are hurt. Or they don't know how to express that I don't want you to go, I'm going to miss you, and you are going to leave a gap in this institution. And because of that, because I've actually experienced that, what I have done in turn is when someone announces that they're leaving and it hurts me, I have freed myself mentally to be able to express to them that it's gonna hurt me. And, you know, I'm gonna miss you. And, you know, I believe in you. I think you're outstanding. And I have those parties that celebrate them. And if it's not a party, it's just a bottle of wine or something. But I think—
Can we pause right there? What kind of wine was that? What bottle of wine?
Amarone.
Oh, okay, just checking, okay.
No, I'm just saying, you know, this is an important question, because let me give you an example. I've worked now in predominantly white settings and in predominantly African American or Black settings. And I've seen quite a few differences in culture. And I think that very often we at HBCUs are so laser focused on the work that we often miss the light moments for appreciation. And it's not every institution, but it's just sometimes we miss those moments. We forget that we need to celebrate our people.
That's right.
And then when people transition from HBCUs to PWIs and they see how light the atmosphere is and how laissez-faire it is sometimes, and they're like, it doesn't matter. We'll do that later. How's your daughter? Right? And I'm saying we should be doing that to our own.
Absolutely.
So because of that, I've made it intentional. I know that Zoe is the name of our police chief's daughter. I know Leanne is the name of the daughter of the executive director for admissions. And those two little girls have already received gifts from me, right? And their parents feel that appreciation through the lineage, right? And so those are parts of it that I think are so important in terms of care for our employees and what may improves retention. So it's okay, on the opposite end, when you're an employee and you are ready to have that conversation with your boss about leaving, give them the deference and the respect that they deserve. Be humble in that moment. You may be about to increase your salary by $100,000, get a title that is the equivalent of theirs, but I think humility in that moment will carry you very far. And the next job is not the only job. You're gonna have a path, right? It's a career path for a reason. And so you never know what will happen next. You can go to the other institution or other place of work and they have a quick furlough, a quick reduction in force, and then now you're out of a job. But if you've left a good imprint in your former position, I've seen people get rehired. I've rehired some people when they haven't had an opportunity, but it's because of how they exited.
That's right.
So that's why I am very, adamant about knowing how to leave. I've seen where my most recent departure was an EHS director, very competent, but didn't like managing anybody. And so I would try to help her. She got so anxious when it was time to manage. And I think it was only about 5 employees she had to manage. But she just didn't like it. But she was so great technically that I would, try to help her through the management process. When she left, I was shocked. And she left because she completed her law degree and wanted to go into the legal profession, which she did. And we celebrated her departure. When she left, about a month later, she called my phone just to say, "Hi, Dr. DeBroy, I'm checking in with you. How are you doing? Is everything okay? Do you need anything from me?" That young lady made me call Dr. Dillard, which I always do, but it just, gave me another notice that I should contact Dillard to say, "Hey, how you doing, Paulette? Everything good?" And those are the things that I think make a difference, both in management and in reporting.
I would say that I would remind us of a relationship that we all can relate to, and that is the relationship between a parent and a child. There comes a time when the parent, as painful as it is, must release the child to go out into the world and to do what they are destined to do and to become. And I think that if there is a good relationship between a president or leader or supervisor or manager with the person to whom with a person who is reporting to them, who is now ready to move and to fly, to go out and to seek other opportunities. I think that to Tashmi's point, the degree to which you come to that conversation with humility, with some grace, gratitude, and honesty, I think that we can all sort of appreciate what comes from that. Those of us who are in leadership positions recognize that young people are not going to stay with us forever. And that if they're good, there are going to be opportunities for them, and that we should celebrate that. But it's the way that they depart that is also important as well. I oftentimes say that every knot we tie, we should untie carefully, both in our personal and our professional lives. And I think that if we, for everyone, if we keep that, that sort of mantra, every knot we tie, we should untie carefully, and you know how to do that, then I think that that puts you in great stead as you move further in your life. You don't want to burn the proverbial bridge. You have to understand that the academy is a small place broadly, and even smaller if you talk about the HBCU sector. And you don't want to become persona non grata with a situation that you mishandled in terms of your departure. And so I think that that's what I would say. But I like this idea of being honest and being gracious. And then finally, to Tashni's point, we have to be kinder to one another at HBC. We are not kind to one another at our institutions. We really are not kind. And we hear a lot about kindness, and it's become almost the go-to word presently. And people throw it around. And for some people, kindness suggests a weakness. But the reality is that in our settings, in our institutions, we are often not kind. And in fact, not only are we not kind, but we are assertively unkind to each other. And I think that we need to, if we could just start there, I think that that would address many of the issues that we have at our institutions. If we would just be kind to one another and to understand how important that is as we move forward and try to for the ascendancy of all of our institutions, which is the work that we're committed to doing. At the end of the day, that is the work that we're committed to doing, making sure that these institutions, these national treasures, as Dr. Felton is oftentimes refers to HBCUs, will continue and grow and be what they have been intended to be. So.
Let me use your language, Dr. Pinker, and try to untie this knot carefully while we're here on walking away, this walking away. So as a career person, mid-career and aspiring, how do I launch? And I've done both. I've done both. So how do I launch this search? Do I do this search in secrecy and not tell my supervisor and wait for the humble moment that we have discussed? Or do I go to the supervisor first for lack of a better word, permission to at some point you're going to have to talk to the supervisor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've used both models. Yeah. So what are the pros and cons of searching secretly and then informing your supervisor versus going to your supervisor initially to say, hey, there's this position, I would like to apply for it. What are the pros and cons, and what are the institutional and interpersonal markers that should govern when you decide to do one versus the other?
Well, I think that first of all, it really does depend on the relationship that you have with the supervisor. And it also depends on your discernment in terms of the character and the person of this supervisor. I'm sure, Chris, that in those instances where you may have secretly sought another opportunity, you did so because you perhaps saw something in your supervisor that suggested to you that to do it openly would disadvantage you. because that person may have had a streak of vindictiveness about them. That person may have been mean. That person, you may not have articulated.
You knew my boss.
You may not have articulated this, but that was in your mind. And for those, and for people who, I mean, for our audience, you have to be discerning in terms of the people with whom you work. You know if a person is vindictive. You've seen them do something in another setting that suggests to you, I can't go to this person and let them know what I'm doing. I just can't do that. And then you have those individuals with whom you worked that it's clear that you could have an honest conversation with them. And so I think you start there. Who are you working with? And what is the character of that individual? And what would happen, for example, if you should reveal early on what your interests are? Now, there is a risk to doing things secretly because, again, there are no secrets in the academy. And people need to understand that. You'd be surprised at how information comes to us as presidents, oftentimes just serendipitously. If you're sitting there and someone just mentions something casually that reveals something about what somebody else is doing. So there is a risk to being secretive about that. I do think, again, I have to land in this place of understanding who you're dealing with, really knowing the person and recognizing the risks of doing something secretly or just being upfront and saying, these are my interests. Now, one way to do that is because people like to be asked for advice, is to go to a supervisor and to say, what do you think about this opportunity? Do you think that I may be ready for this opportunity? That then elicits another kind of conversation about you, how you're perceived. You are giving a little bit of power to the person by asking them that. But it does open up an opportunity for some frank discussion, particularly if this is somebody that you respect and whose opinion you wish you seek, and who in the past has demonstrated that they have your best interest at heart. But you don't want to be revealing to a supervisor that has indicated by their actions that they care nothing about you. They care nothing about your professional development. They barely know who you are. They have a vindictive streak. They have a mean streak. You've seen that demonstrated in terms of how they've dealt with other people. And so you have to really sort of move accordingly. And finally, let me say this, you have the absolute right to have complete sovereignty of your future. You don't abdicate your future and your future desires and aspirations and passions to anyone. And that's important. That sense of self-agency is really important. And I want people to hear that what we're talking about here is not abdicating that to any one person. What we're talking about is how can you pursue those passions and those interests while at the same time maintaining important relationships, maintaining integrity, maintaining your reputation and your brand, and untying a knot carefully. And when you find that can't be done, then sometimes you just have to walk away. And because you have a right to be in absolute control of your future. Don't abdicate that to anyone, including the most important mentor or advocate that you might have. This is your life, and you have to take full responsibility for it, and without apology.
Yeah, I think Tony nailed it. Tony nailed it. So you look to see how your boss has treated other people who've departed, and that should be an example of his or her track record. And so you approach the situation clandestinely if you've seen where they've treated them in a manner that you wouldn't want to be treated if you departed. And there are no guarantees when you try to seek a job opportunity. And so sometimes there is value in moving in silence or just testing the water but the HBCU community is very small. I've learned about my, a few direct reports over my career time that have been seeking other job opportunities, and I knew about it before they actually came to me. But I haven't said anything to them, didn't tell them. I knew. I just gave them the opportunity because I think it's their right to seek more. But when you're on the opposite end of things, in terms of you are the one seeking the opportunity, you really have to be careful about how you do it. If you have a great relationship with your boss and you know that seeking something, a major opportunity in silence would damage the relationship, then I would suggest that you speak to them about it.
Well, let me do this. Let me do this because I'm watching the time. And we have been abiding by my definitions of messy and petty, which are positive. I use those terms positively, but let us be transparent. There's also a negative side to those definitions of messy and petty. Absolutely. And we've not said it today, but H.E.L.F has an HBCU focus in terms of its mission to not just prepare better leaders, but to prepare better leaders for HBCU settings. So if we were to be honest today, we would have to confess, as Tashni did a dichotomous narrative earlier, that there can be a fair amount of negative messiness and pettiness in absolutely. HBCU communities.
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
And let us not deal with faculty. Faculty get their fair share of brunt. But I want to hone in two messy and petty communities. One is alumni, and the second is boards. Those are facts. Those are two areas where, depending on the campus setting, there can be a fair amount of messiness and pettiness. What is the role, if you would, of the board? What is the role of the board in setting the culture for the campus? What is the role of a board to avoid messiness and pettiness? And what do we say to practitioners who are in an environment, Lord, I was in one once, only once fortunately, where the board was extremely petty, not messy, but petty. So what is the advice? Give us some insights into alumni and board messiness and pettiness. And then two, if you find yourself in an environment that you seem to be unable to calm the tide or navigate the messiness and pettiness of either alumni or the board, how do you move and navigate in those settings? Tashni, you go first. You're gonna be calm. Then Pinker, you can ramp it up.
Okay. All right.
So when you're choosing a place of employment, let's say you're ready to pursue the presidency, it is important that you do the Twitter search, you do the media search locally, because it doesn't always show up on your Facebook feed. Not everybody in New York is gonna know what's happening in Mississippi. So it's important for you to do the local media searches to see what the board's track record is. I am going to say something, but there are many that will disagree with me. I always say, as a college president, if it comes down to a battle between the board and the president is not going to win.
No,
that's a battle that
you're correct.
That's a college president.
That's right.
You're correct.
That's a battle that
however,
presidents will never win.
I have seen a couple of presidents win that battle. But I won't name one of the people who I know transformed his board, but it's one of my very dear friends. who at the onset of his presidency had a messy board and was able to work along with the board chair to transition messy board members off the board. But notice what I mentioned, it was through the aiding of the board chair. So, you know, it's not the president against everybody. That was not the situation. And so I am never going to subscribe to the side where the president, you know, reveals everything and that kind of thing. That's not going to be my subscription. If it gets that bad, leave the job. People get fired, people get rehired, not because you've had a bad experience with one university means that your track record is now marred in perpetuity. If you have a track record of doing, there's somebody out there that will take a chance on you once more. I think it's the board's responsibility to corral communities where they may hinder the president's progress. And they have to make public statements about their support for the president.
Absolutely.
And they have to make public statements about their intolerance for the minority and of the community members who are usually part of that messy crew. When you look at it and look at the vast number of alumni or the vast number of faculty, it's very rare that the entire faculty or the entire alumni or the entire board is messy. It's usually a select few who are the nuclei of that messiness, but it's the board chair's responsibility and the board's responsibility to hone that in. The president plays a role certainly in building morale, building community within the various sectors of the campus and across these stakeholder relationships. But if somebody intends to be messy for absolutely no reason, I'm sorry, you could walk on water and they will say you can't swim.
That's right.
And so in those types of cases, you're not going to be able to do it without the support of the board. And the board should look to protect the institution, that a president should not come in and be so distracted with dealing with dissension that they're not able to move the university forward. I always look, when I see complaints coming from, let's say, alumni or faculty, I read it and I read every single letter because I want to see what some of the issues that they're bringing to the table are about. But I also watch to see if those same alumni, when we win, what their actions are.
That's right.
And if when we win, you're not emailing me to say, DeBroy, you did a good job, or I didn't like you at first, I didn't even know you, but now I'm seeing what you're bringing to my institution, and for that I'm happy, then you know that that's just part of the Hater Nation. That's and right. you can differentiate between people who are giving constructive criticisms versus people who are just rabble-rousers and continue to do that. But those types of fights, not all fights are made for the president to fight. The president's cabinet have to remain soldiers on the ground in those fights as well, and have to remain the voice and to be able to own tough decisions. If there is an academic decision that is not popular with the campus community, the provost has to own it. If there is a decision coming through student affairs that's not popular with the student affairs VP has to own it. It's unacceptable for someone who's being compensated at the cabinet level to go out to an audience and say, well, it wasn't my decision, the president, or what I mean. By that time, those aren't the types of executives that you'd expect to have in an organization that is well run. By that time, people own the decisions that are made. And the board support has a lot to do with that. So when you're interviewing, you ask those tough questions, but you also check the board's track record to ensure that when the going gets tough, the board doesn't go running.
That's right. I think that, Tashni really sort of nailed it. A couple of things I'd just like to add on to that. And that is that I know two instances, one at a PWI and another at an HBCU, where you're absolutely right. The president turned around the board, but that president had cultivated good relationships with other constituent groups, faculty, students, and alums who rallied to support both those presidents in those instances. It is the board's responsibility to protect the integrity of the institution, to make absolutely sure that the institution is moving forward in a path forward to sustainability, viability, high performance. That is the board's responsibility. And in doing so, it's the board's responsibility to choose a leader that can get the institution there. And it is counterproductive, and it serves no one well, certainly the institution, if the board is fighting with the president. And you're absolutely right. It is the board chair that has to intercede and make sure that a good relationship exists, because only when that relationship is a good functional one does the institution move forward. When those entities are fighting, the institution suffers. And I like the idea, Tashni, of saying to check your board, find out how they have behaved in the past, how they have behaved and treated former presidents. What have those relationships been like? I think that is important information to have. And then finally, when there gets to a point where it seems that the relationship is untenable, that the fighting is not going to stop, then that's when the leader has to make the decision that there is no longer alignment between my individual vocation and the mission of this institution, and perhaps it's time for me to walk away. I should have said at the beginning, and I certainly want to say it here, that being a leader is not easy. Being a leader is not easy, and being a leader in the HBCU space is particularly challenging, because Black folks are hard. We're hard on each other. We are hard on each other. And of course, that's another conversation about why we are that way. But we are. And presidents of HBCUs, we get it from everybody. And to your point, there are those people who are not going to like you just because you're not the former president. They're just not going to like you, whatever you do. And then you can make the distinction between those who are cautious and they want to see what you're doing to advance the institution, and those that are, just as you say, part of the hater nation. They just are not going to like you, and they are designed and they live to make your life difficult. And what you have to say, and I think this is important, what I said I just use an own personal example. When I took the position at Wilberforce, and my very first opportunity to meet with the alums, and they had a wonderful luncheon to welcome me. And it was a very gracious opportunity, and people wanted to know, was I going to stick around? And I said, I'm here to stay. I am all in, but I am also not into abusive relationships. Mm-hmm. And that was my sort of being very clear about what I was going to accept, both personally and professionally. I've also said to faculty at various times, you all at any given time, you don't need to meet secretly. You don't need to do a vote of no confidence on me. Let me know when this is not working, and I can pack my bags and go elsewhere. I'm not going to fight a group of people to work hard on their behalf. I am resolute about that. I will work hard for you, but you're not going to make my life difficult for no reason. And I'm fighting every day for you and for this institution. And so at some point you have to, again, back to your own individual resolve and what is acceptable, what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept. But this is you have to know that this is not for the faint of heart. This is not work for the faint of heart.
This has been rich. The questions are still coming in, and likely I'm going to text Dr. Felton in a moment and ask him just to post the email addresses or the like of the various panelists so that the questions can continue. They're just too rich and varied for me to encapsulate in this one conversation. What I want to do is offer some summative advice. There's so much, and I looked at the health agenda, it's just packed all day long. And if it's one thing I like during a conference nowadays is a telecommunications break. I got to get some text messages and emails in. I want to allow those persons who are participating in the Institute a moment to do emails, text messages, and phone calls before the next session. What are 3 nuggets? This conversation has been rich. It got deep. The tables got turned. We learned about good wine for celebrations. What are 3 nuggets that we want to leave with this audience of practitioners regarding searching, being sought after, and staying put? You know, one piece of advice about searching, how to organize the search. One piece of advice about being sought after. Sometimes just because someone is recruiting you, it does not mean it's a place you want to go.
Absolutely.
You have to be very careful. Ask Adam about who brings you a piece of fruit. You need to be very careful. Right. And then what is or Eve too.
I thought I was on mute. That was my joking thing.
Or staying put. One piece of advice for them, and let's think about that. What if we could say something to these practitioners? You know, if you're going to search, this is something you really want to consider. If someone is seeking you out, these are things you want to investigate and make sure that it is as they are saying. And if you're going to pass up opportunities and remain in a place, what are those considerations?
So Tony, let's
okay, I'll start.
Let's start with searching.
Okay, go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Tashnee. Please.
No, I think in terms of searching, do your research. That part is where I would center my advice. Do your research about the entities that you're interested in and about the opportunities that others have explored. Not because you are on an academic track to the provost position, does it mean that your next position has to be within that thread. It's very much commonplace these days that you are reporting through different chains as you move to various facets of the institution or move to another institution, depending on its size. There's some organizations, I'll use my own, where facilities reports to me as the chief operating officer. And in my former institution, facilities reported to the CFO, all right? But it's you get the opportunity to be on an ops team that consists of other members in the organization who are working along the same thread, staying behind the scenes and ensuring that the university works. You're not the star of the show, you just help to make the show happen. But either way, you can vacillate between opportunities within any arm of the institution. So do your research, see what others have done. I speak to people all the time who I get to hear their stories, and these are younger executives. I'm not speaking about age, I'm speaking about tenure, and they want some advice on where it is that they can go next, or what it is that I've seen across organizations. I think I've seen so many of those now that I'm able to share examples on people who have moved and where they've moved to and the successes they've had.
I would say, and to that point, I would say establish a network of individuals who know the academy, who have a wealth of experience, and who know and value and celebrate you, and will be honest with you, and will give you useful advice. Herman talks often about his village that he consults. These are seasoned professionals, higher educational professionals, former presidents, who give good, honest critique and advice. And so begin to establish that network of individuals that you can consult and who will give you an honest assessment of circumstances, and who know the academy, who've had the experience, who may oftentimes tell you things that you may not want to hear. They may say, stay. They may say, this is not the right time to move. They may say to you, as you are looking at an institution that at first glance is very, very attractive to you, and where you want to be. And someone in your network may say, you don't want to go there, and this is the reason why. These are oftentimes hard, difficult conversations to have, but I think that would be my one piece of advice there. To begin to establish a network of individuals. You might also find this network can help you at those times when you may have to walk away unexpectedly from a situation, and you can pick up the phone and someone can say, oh, I have a position for you, or I have a situation that you might be able to be placed, or I can help you land here while you're looking for something more permanent. So begin to establish that network of individuals.
Excellent. Being sought after.
Sought after comes with track record. I definitely think that I'm committed to being a doer. And I'll be honest with you, that's a part of what I would call my value proposition, because there's so many people who can talk the talk, but there are people who are more articulate than I am, who have knowledge of history that I don't. I'm a scientist. I've had to relearn and unlearn some of what I've been taught in order to be able to survive or be able to contribute well to conversations on social justice. Being an immigrant also forces me to unlearn some of what I have been taught, or learn new perspectives compared to what I was, taught back home. And so that's part of my learning process. But what I've always ensured that I've done along the way is complete, all right? And so I complete the goals, I smash those goals. I love to do what's called process optimization. I love to look at something, see where the deficits are, and help to build teams to improve them. So I think that's where being sought after comes into play. But there are moments when your head is so deep in the sand that you don't elevate and see what opportunities are out there. So I think part of being sought after comes from being published, going to conferences to do presentations, being well networked in your field. You should be part of the your field's noted or notable memberships, right? Those are the types of things that I would say that you should do. Your Rolodex should be expanding each year.
Yeah.
And try to make those relationships genuine, where you're not solely calling on someone when you need something from them, but you're just calling to check in to say, hey, how you doing? How are things going now? I still check in with some of my college president peers. And it's not because I am seeking any opportunities, but it's because I'm genuinely friends with them. And so I think the same should be, evident no matter what level of the organization that you are. I encourage my direct reports all the time. I'll say to the facilities director, please reach out to the local consortium and learn any ideas that we need to exchange. You do the same. And that's not an uncommon task that I've constantly asked my staff to do. So I think those are the types of things that you do in order to be noticed as well.
Awesome.
I would say do the work, be good at the work, be thorough at the work. I would echo everything that Dashni said, and then some by simply saying do the work, be good at the work, be expansive in terms of your experience, seek new experiences, develop and cultivate a rich network. But I would also ask, trust and develop your discernment. Particularly when it comes to whether you should leave or stay, be discerning in terms of your relationships with individuals, to cultivate emotional intelligence, being able to read a situation, being able to read individuals. That's an important skill that we don't talk enough about. That sense of discernment, cultivating that and making sure that that's a skill that we perform at the highest level. But everything that Tashni said, I would underscore.
I want to add something, and I don't think we've said the word too often just thus far, but it's about investigating the culture of the institution that you're about to join. There are over 3,500 colleges and universities that of note that one would say in higher education you want to be a part of. But we've got some universities with some strong brands that have cultures that you may not necessarily want to join.
Absolutely.
And I've learned this over time by speaking to employees of those entities when I've gone to conferences or when I've been on speaking engagements and sat at tables with various professionals across the organizations. And so, some of them were shocking to me. I'm like, really? That happens there? Right? And so those are things that you've got to investigate before you join a university, because what you don't want to do is take a job opportunity simply because of the promotion that it provides or the compensation that fits within your band. And then when you go there, you are shocked by the culture. So it's definitely something that you should try to investigate in a multilateral manner, whether through the online reputation it has, or simply by talking to a few people that work there. And you may establish those connections on LinkedIn. It's so much easier to do so now and just pick somebody's brain about it. You're not forcing anybody to bash anything, but what you are asking them to do is just describe the organization's culture.
Yeah.
Awesome. And let's flip it since Tashni started. Dr. Pick, we'll let her have the last word on staying put. So Tony, you go first. Staying put.
Again, I go back to this mantra: every knot you tie, untie carefully. And if you are in a situation where it's clear that there are individuals there, maybe it's the person to whom you report, maybe it's your colleagues that clearly value you. They affirm you, they celebrate you, they recognize your wealth and your worth. Then this may be a place that you might want to stay. It may not be a place that you want to leave for now. If you are getting that kind of really strong support where people see you and recognize how valuable you are. And if you're in a place where there are professional development opportunities where you can be poured into and continue to develop as a professional, it may be a place where you want to stay, at least for the time being. If you have the person to whom you report, whether it be the president or an immediate supervisor that you respect, your values and your belief systems are aligned. You respect this person. They inspire you. You like the direction of the institution. All of those things are aligned. Your individual vocation is aligned with this institution's mission. If there is alignment there, then I think that perhaps may be a time for you to stay put. This is not to say that you should be there forever. And again, when you are discerning, those opportunities will present themselves that you will begin to say, perhaps it's time to leave. And some of the things that I've just described may shift or change, which would give you pause and an occasion to say, perhaps this is the time to leave as well. But again, when you do make that decision, if that decision happens, make sure that you untie that knot carefully, and all of the things that we've talked about this morning in terms of respect, in terms of honesty, in terms of civility, and all of those things.
I'll draw a parallel between knowing when to stay and in personal relationships as well. Very often when we choose partners and there are breakups, you'll hear one partner say, man, I ignored his or her bad habits. I overlooked something that became, a pain or a thorn in the relationship. And sometimes you also hear people say that, he or she impressed me because they had shiny things.
Yes.
Or offered shiny things. In a professional setting, there are institutions that will offer shiny things. And you have to be able to look beyond the shiny things, investigate the challenges, because that's what you will be there to solve, and choose accordingly. In terms of choosing and staying, once you have been committed to the institution, I think there will always be an opportunity where somebody else may offer you the salary that you've been always looking for, or an advancement that you may have danced with in the past. But you have to be able to distinguish between your dream and ensuring that you've investigated the morals that the institution has, the values that they have, and all else. Because at the end of the day, once you're in the job, the shiny part often, disintegrates, and then what you're left with is the rubble that really needs your attention.
Absolutely.
So I stay when I'm appreciated. I stay when I'm compensated. I stay when there's an opportunity for me to develop my skill set, and when there's an opportunity for me to share the innovation and the vision that I have, even if I'm following somebody else's vision. I think that one of the greatest attributes of any leader is knowing how to follow.
Yes.
And the leader who is being followed in turn has to give his or her followers the opportunity to grow. That growth does not have to come in terms of a title, in terms of a new position. The growth can also come in terms of projects that are given, in terms of the opportunity to excel, to be more visible, whether to the board or to anyone else. Who doesn't want approvals that is outstanding, right? Which leader wouldn't want to brag about his or her advancement VP?
That's right.
Every good leader wants their direct reports to shine.
Absolutely.
When you leave is when you are working for a leader who does not demonstrate the level of confidence that is needed to be comfortable with a VP who shines, or comfortable with an admissions director who shines. Those people are who you want to work for.
Yeah.
And so you stay when you have situations like that, because those are gems that are very rare, and leaving could put you in a position where you're underappreciated and you would be searching for a job opportunity sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And you have to be really honed into that relationship. I mean, you really have to be skillful at recognizing that, because sometimes that behavior may not be as obvious. And that behavior that I'm talking about is that behavior that doesn't support you. It may not be obvious. And so that's why, again, you have to be discerning when it comes to your own well-being, and recognizing when someone really doesn't have your best interest at heart, even though it may be someone that you have some respect for, or that is to whom you report, or is in fact the president, but they give subtle hints that that you're not valued. And as Tashni has said, that's when it's time for you to leave.
This has been absolutely fabulous. I want to thank our panelists, Dr. DuBroy and Dr. Pinkard. As an old higher ed professor, I would encourage those who are practitioners to pick up two books that seem to have pervaded the conversation today. One is Good to Great, and it talks about how to become a level 5 leader. And much of what has been discussed today has been about developing level 5 leadership and emotional intelligence. And another book by Peter Singhi, The Art and Science of a Learning Organization. And the appendix, skip the whole book. All well, page 29 is good when it talks about the parable of the boiled frog. But if you get to the appendix, it talks about the practice, the principle, and the essence of a thing. The practice is what happens, what it does. The principle is why it says it does it. And the essence is why it really does it, the core motivations. And this is very hard work. We didn't get to talk about that today, but this is emotional work. This is mental work. It is mentally taxing. It is physical work. It takes a toll on our health. And it is spiritual work. We heard people talk about vocations and callings for courage. Everyone is not cut out for this work. And because of that, I can think of no better way to close than with the famous philosopher, Belcalis Marlinus Almanzar. You all know Belcalis Marlinus Almanzar. You all don't know her. Well, everyone calls her Cardi B. And Cardi B says it this way. When we think about our institution and what we're giving, she says, I gave you everything, what's mine is yours. She says, I want you to live your life, of course, but I hope you get what you're dying for. Be careful with me. Do you know what you're doing? Whose feelings you're hurting and bruising? You go gain the whole world, but you go lose the very job that you wanted. Be careful with me. It's not a threat. It's a warning. Be careful with me. My heart is like a package with a fragile label on it. It's about
I am so happy that you did not ask me.
And staying put. What'd you say, Tashni?
No, I am very impressed, Chris. First of all, let me just say that's impressive.
Oh, I love it.
I am extremely impressed. And I'm glad you didn't ask me which Cardi B song I knew, because that wasn't going to be the one. I am very happy about that. And I will sign off from here.
Yeah, I love Pop Smoke too. I'm really into Pop Smoke right now, but that's another topic. Yes, Dr. Felton, we turn it over to you.
Let me say,
thank you, Dr. Brown. Thank you, Dr. DuBroy. It was wonderful being with you.
This day, the start of the program. Thank you, Dr. DuBroy, Dr. Pinkard, and Dr. Brown for being thought partners and our thought facilitator. This concludes the panel on searching, sought, and staying put, knowing when to hold them and when to fold them and when to walk away. I think you all will agree that this has been a phenomenal start to our virtual institute. I want to thank our colleagues for joining us here today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good seeing you.
Have a good Felton, right?
Yes, sir.
You saw that, Felton. Okay.
You saw.
Shimmy on them, Felton. Shimmy on them.
Please stay tuned for the next panel, the Health Impact, Reflections from our Health Fellows. Joined in this panel is Dr. Colette Pierce-Brunette, president of Houston-Tilliston University, and 4 of our fellows. Now we invite you to enjoy a presentation on all things health. To date, over 300 fellows have joined us to be a part of this amazing journey. We have produced or created a journal a podcast. And here is some information for you to learn where to apply for the Lambda Mu cohort at Wiley College, and a few other things offered here at the Higher Education Leadership Foundation.